Hi and welcome to this final video in the 4-part series, How to Rip Your Irons. My name is Chris Ryan and today we are looking specifically at the impact, and I've got a couple of fantastic little exercises and drills that you can do to help you better understand impact and ultimately get there in your golf swing to hit better iron shots. So welcome back to the Forest of Arden and welcome to video 4, the final video in this series, How You Can Rip Your Irons. We're talking about impact. Videos 1, 2 and 3 have covered the concept of what we're trying to do at impact. We've covered the setup, the backswing and some downswing elements. So we are talking about probably, well, definitely the most important part of the golf swing, the impact. If we can get the impact correct, we can play great golf. Regardless of what our golf swing looks like, you know, the shapes that we create in the backswing, if we can get impact correct, we can play good golf. So the first thing we're going to do in this video is just go through some concepts and just go through some ideas about how impact and setup would be quite different. For many golfers who I coach, understanding impact is kind of the first stage because many of them aren't necessarily aware of how we should be positioned within our body and our hands at impact. So let me take my starting position to this golf ball. I've got a 7-iron here. And when I make contact with a ball, in a good golf swing, there'll be quite a few differences. I would tend to want to have my hips closer to the target, so weight forward on this lead side. I would also like to have my lower body rotated, so my belt buckle pointing more towards the target. I would also like to have my rib cage or my upper body, again, slightly rotated towards the target. It doesn't always look like that because my front of my shoulders can appear to be square, but my rib cage is slightly rotated. If I do those things, when we look from the face on, bumping my hips forward doesn't necessarily take the handle forwards. But as I start to add the rotation through my hips and my torso, you'll notice that that rotation starts to drag the handle a little forwards. Now, if I place my lead hand on and allow the grip to go forwards, but keep the club face square to my target, as well as the handle going forward, my lead wrist starts to flatten out. You can see at setup, there's a slight cup in it. And as I go into this impact position, I create this flat lead wrist. Notice how as I'm doing that, my right knee is going to be slightly kicking in and my right shoulder is going to be getting slightly closer to the ground than it was at setup. So this would be how I'd like my impact to look. So this is a great little exercise for any of you out there who aren't exactly sure about what impact should be. You can start to create this little movement here. So setup, impact, weight's going forwards, body's rotating. Those elements are going to drag the handle forwards, and provided I keep the club face square, that's going to help me appreciate where my wrists need to be. The other thing we can start to do is we can start to, from that position, create some bend in the shaft. As we create that bend in the shaft, you should feel that's coming from the last knuckle on your trail hand. That is the one that's applying that pressure to the golf club. You can see how the back of my finger is starting to apply the pressure to the ground. This is what we want. As I continue with that pressure, the club shaft is going to bend as I continue through right to a finished position. So the first thing I would like a golfer to do if they're really struggling with impact is just do that little exercise and start to appreciate where impact is. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and hit some tiny little chips from that point. So I would take my setup, I would find impact, and then from here, just make a little tiny swing and just bump the ball 30 yards. And I'm looking for that really low ball flight where I'm really rotated, my arms are extended, and lots of the elements that I had at impact are still present. I've got the weight forward, I've got my hands forward, I've got my body rotated, my right knee's kicked in. So all I've really done is taken that impact, moved it back, and then kind of rotated through. So your first little exercise is the little preset impact drill, chipping the ball 20-30 yards with that really nice low ball flight. So having a really good understanding of where impact is relative to setup is really important. However, just having that information doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get there. There's a lot of things that are going to influence that. And one of the big things that would influence your ability to achieve that good impact would be how the club face is positioned through the downswing. So if I take my lead hand on this golf club, and as we approach this point in the downswing, we'd like the club face to be pretty much, the leading edge about vertical, maybe slightly turned in from vertical. Many of you who are struggling with your iron game will actually get the golf club pointing a little bit more to the sky. And if this is you, if you do find that position, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to achieve the correct impact. And even if you do achieve the right impact from there, you're probably going to find the ball heading more out to the right of the target. So, you know, how we twist the golf club with our hands and our wrists is really, really important. So these two little exercises we're going to do now are so important for impact and delivering that golf club to impact as we like. You'll notice that I have got my glove on and I've got a tee which I've just popped into the back of the Velcro. And what I'm trying to do from the top of the golf swing is I'm trying to get to a point here where we're going to say this is kind of last delivery, where the tee peg is pointing pretty much horizontally out away from me. That is going to ensure that my lead wrist is pretty flat. Many of you, when you find you stop at this position, will be, you know, a little bit more like this, where you can see the tee peg is pointing a little bit more up towards the sky. So job number one is to really establish what that feels like, this flat lead wrist where the tee peg is pointing out a little bit more in front of you. Get that position, and unfortunately we're still not done. Let's talk about the lead arm. So let's say we're in this position here. We've got ourselves last power in the downswing, we've got the tee peg horizontally, we've got a really good understanding of what impact is like. There's still lots that has to happen from here to the golf ball. And we're just going to talk about this in terms of the lead arm, but you can imagine obviously the trail arm is on there as well. But if we can just focus on what this lead sort of forearm and wrist is doing, then we can achieve that good impact. So what have I got at this point here? Well, I've got really three movements I can have from my elbow down. If I show you in the face on camera here, I've got my wrist cock that I could do here. I've got my rotation of my forearm, and I've got this movement here within my wrist. Now, from here to impact, those three things have to change. That is why impact is so difficult. So as I go from this point, I want you to do this as a little exercise. Notice where the tee peg points. Tee peg points straight out in front of me, horizontal to the ground, pointing out towards that camera there. If I delivered my hand to the ball like this, where the tee peg does not change, I'm going to hit shanks. I'm going to hit high right shots. We don't want that. I want you to rehearse from here, pointing the tee peg to the target and to the ground. So you'll see this movement. So you can see how I'm taking that tee peg and I'm moving it towards the target and down towards the ground. So it's gone from horizontal and towards that camera, downwards and towards the target. So what's actually happening for me to do that? Well, my forearm is rotating in this fashion. Notice how that's helping the tee peg point towards the target. If I have got any wrist set, I have to uncock that wrist to get the club down to the ground, and I have to flex my lead wrist. Very complex movement because there's three things happening there. But what we can start to get you to do is do that with the golf club. So take my setup to the golf ball. I'm going to get myself into this position here, and as I deliver and open up my body, keep your eye on that tee peg, it's going to go downwards and towards the target. That is going to be my feeling in order for me to deliver the golf club with that de-lofted position that we spoke about right at the start of the videos. Many golfers who get themselves into this position will unfortunately deliver the club like this, where you can see that the tee peg is not really pointing downwards and it's not really pointing towards the target. The reason for that is because I haven't got the extra elements in there, which is that flexing of that lead wrist. So great little exercise for any golfer is just to get yourself into this position and practice what it would be like to get that tee peg down to the ground and towards the target. That is me uncocking my wrists, rotating the club shaft, rotating the forearm, and trapping the loft off the golf club. If we can do those things, we can start to really get those balls going out low, flighted, get our low point target side of the golf ball. So your next little exercise here is to do that over a very short distance. So I'm going to go set up, I'm going to find my delivery here, and I'm going to rehearse my impact with my body and creating that move into my arm. So I'm going to rehearse it here, and chip it out. Now, I caught that a little bit heavy, but just notice the follow through position I've got. Club head is staying very low relative to my hands. My lead wrist is excessively arched. I've rotated my body. This is a fantastic position for you to try and achieve. Many of you, when you try and hit the golf ball from here, will very much do this, where the body isn't rotating. You can see the T-peg is pointing up. You can see that I have extended this lead wrist. That is not what we want in this delivery position. So although that was a pretty poor strike, that was pretty much what I'm trying to do in the drill. So I'm here, rotating, keeping the club head lower than my hands, T-peg pointing towards the target. Impact, as you can imagine, is so difficult to work on because it's just happening at such high speed. To me, it's a case of trying to get the right concepts, trying to understand where we need to be with our body, and then starting off with some slow drills like we've done there, which are going to help you understand and appreciate how you need to move both your body and your arms and the club down into impact to achieve what we said at the start. If you can use those drills that we've covered, if you can take some of those to the drive range and put some time in, put some practice in, start to structure your practice in such a way that you're mixing it with some drills, some swings, some target-oriented practice, we can start to really elevate your iron game. And it's a great way to lower your scores and actually have more fun out there, because like we said right back in video 1, there is almost no better feeling than hitting that really nice crisp iron shot from the fairway and seeing it finish right by the flag. So let's finish this video series with one final shot into this 15th hole, this par 3. It's 185 yards, as we said, so for me it's a pretty stock 7-iron. Wind is a little off the left, so I'm just going to try and send this around about 10-15 feet left and hopefully let the wind just move it back a little bit in the air. And that should be pretty good. It's not quite come back enough, but it should be about 15 feet left. And just actually catching that slope a little bit, and it's actually ending up a little bit closer than I first thought. Divot after the ball, that tells me that those impact ideas that we spoke about in video 1 were present. My attack angle was negative, my low point was forward. The reason I was able to do those things is because I moved my body in exactly the way we've covered in this video series, and you too can hit shots just like that one. Thank you very much for watching. Really hope you've enjoyed this video series. Let me know in the comments box, would you like to see more of these series where I do 3 to 4 videos on a topic? Allows me to go into a little bit more depth and hopefully allows you to gather a little bit more information about the particular swing, shot or topic that we are discussing. Like button is also down there, and over here my logo, that is a link to be a free subscriber. I would love to have you along for the journey. It just means you won't miss any of the upcoming video series. Thank you for watching. I'll hopefully see you back here again soon.